Good afternoon. I'm Chums Teresa Blanks, and I would like to welcome you to the 2022 Chums Founders Day celebration. I would like to introduce Chum Sharon Hobbs, and she will be giving the welcome address.
Good afternoon. Today is the first day of spring, and what better way to spend it than with Chums? We are an organization dedicated to helping everyone that needs our help and also having a lot of fun. We want to thank those of you who are visitors. Please feel part of this wonderful family. And in the spirit of this month, which is Women's Month and Women Making History, we have a wonderful program. And we want you to know that each of us makes our own history and a history for the people around us. So let's do good things and let's continue to celebrate who we are as African-American women. We are very fortunate this afternoon, to have some of our national officers. We have Chum Barbara Neville, who is the current national president of Chums, and she's from Hampton, Newport chapter. We have Chum Elizabeth Saunders, who is the immediate past national president, and she's from the Orlando chapter. We have our National Sergeant at Arms, Ruth Carter, who is from the Northern New Jersey chapter. And we have our own Lansing Chum, Viola Burton Mitchell, who is the National Public Relations Officer. I think it's a great honor that we have national officers here. And I would like to ask our Chum Barbara, who is our national president, to greet you all. Enjoy the program. We are so happy to have you here.
Good afternoon, Chum Hobbs, rest of my national officers, my dear Chum sisters. I am delighted to be here today. I did not think I was going to make it, but God has a way of working things out, and so I am here. I've looked at your program and I am just excited, and I did not want to miss it. So I'm going to sit back for the time that I have and enjoy it. I wish you all the luck in the world on the rest of your year. I know it's going to be exciting. I can't wait to see what comes of it. So thank you, and thank you for the invitation, and thank you for the time. Enjoy myself, I will, and I hope that everyone else will as well. Thank you, Chum Sharon.
Thank you, Chum Barbara Neville and Chum Sharon Hobbs. Now we will have Chum Diane McCann, and she will give the invocation and words of inspiration.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us in celebrating our Founders Day. I'd like to offer special words for you today. A plate of love, a bowl of peace, a spoon of hope, a fork of care, and a glass of prayer. Love, peace, hope, care, and prayer are the special words that I give to you as we enjoy this time we spend together under God's protective care. Would you join me in prayer? Most holy and loving God of heaven, you are the creator of all good things. You made us in your image and purposed our lives. You bring life, joy, laughter, healing, and peace. Thank you, Lord, for obedient and submissive hearts that desires to follow where you lead. May our feet travel down this path with love in our hearts and commitment to doing thy will. Lord, as we grow and flourish in serving our communities, may all we do glorify and edify your kingdom. Thank you, Lord, for believing in and providing ways to bless and better our communities. Continue surprising and showing us how we might follow you in ways unimaginable to bless our children in the matchless power of our resurrected Savior and Lord. Amen.
Thank you, Chum Diane McCann. Now we will have Chum Viola Mitchell, and she will present the history of Chums Incorporated.
Good afternoon, my Chum sisters and guests. I would like to share with you the Chums history. Chums Incorporated is a national organization that just recently celebrated 76 years of Chumdom. You may ask, what is Chums? Chums is a national nonprofit organization that provides opportunities for women to meet in friendship and fun, to encourage a spirit of helpfulness, and to use their many talents in the service to the children in the community. The Chums organization was founded on February 2nd, 1946, by 3 phenomenal women: Chum George Tate Brown, Mary Warren Barnes, and Theodore Jackson Core. The Chums organization has 35 chapters from New York to California with over 750 active members. You may ask, what do we do? The Chums organization promotes civil, cultural, educational, and social improvement with a focus on to enrich the lives of our children by helping them to develop to their fullest potential. The national Chums theme is listen to the children, enrich their lives. Chums believe in giving back by supporting several national and local organizations that support children activities. And every year at Conclave, a $5,000 National Foundership Scholarship is given to a student who's entering their first year of college. The scholarship is based on academic achievement and need. The Chums colors are green and yellow. The Chum flower is the yellow tea rose. The Glade Ransom chapter was chartered June 6, 1992, and the Detroit chapter was chartered May 23, 1970. To learn more about this wonderful organization, visit our national website and Facebook page. The link will be provided in the chat. Thank you and enjoy the program.
Thank you, Chum Viola Mitchell. Now we will have a musical selections from Dr. Shonda Mitchell.
Shattered, but I'm not broken. Wounded, but time will heal. Heavy the load, the cross I bear. Lonely the road I trod, I dare. Shaken, but here I stand. Weary, still I press on. Long are the nights, the tears I cry. Dark are the days, no sun in the sky. Yet still I rise, never to give up, never to give in against all odds. Yet still I rise high above the clouds. At times I feel low, yet still I rise. Sometimes I'm troubled, but not in despair. struggling, I make my way through. Trials, they come to make me strong. I must endure, I must hold on. Yet still I rise, never to give up, never to give in against all odds. Yet still I rise high above the clouds. At times I feel low, yet still I rise above all my problems, above my eyes can see, knowing that God is able to strengthen me, to strengthen me, yet still I rise, never to give up, oh, never to give in against all odds, yet still I'll rise, whoa, above the clouds. At times I feel low, yet still I need to know which way to go, yet still at times I feel low, yet still rise, yes, still I rise. Keep rising, sisters.
Thank you, Dr. Chandra Marshall, for that musical selection. Next, we will have our moderator, Chum Wanda Lipscomb, and she would introduce our panelists.
Well, good afternoon to our chums and guests, and thank you so much, Dr. Marshall, for that beautiful introduction of Still I Rise. I am honored this afternoon to introduce our panel that represents the centerpiece of our Founders Day program. Our theme, African American Women Leaders, Building and Strengthening Communities, was selected as an interface of the celebration of both African American history and women's history. We stand on the shoulders of queens, extraordinary women who have paved the way for us to experience the success that we have today. Yet we still rise. Our focus as Chums is to listen to the children and enrich their lives. We are privileged and honored to have 5 phenomenal African American current day queens join us this afternoon. A full version of their bio sketches have been added to the chat. I would like to begin, though, with a very abbreviated introduction of each at this time. Our first panelist, the Honorable Sarah Anthony, is serving her second term as state representative, representing the 68th House District of Michigan, which encompasses the city of Lansing and Lansing Township. In November 2018, Anthony was sworn in, making history as the first African-American woman to serve as a state representative in Lansing's history. State Representative Anthony is very busy. She serves as the chair of the House Democratic Caucus, the vice chair of the Progressive Women's Caucus, and the first vice chair of the Michigan Legislative Caucus. She has earned a reputation as a pragmatic, effective legislator who works very well across both sides of the aisle. She continues to fight to strengthen education, expand healthcare, reform our criminal justice system, and improving economy for working families and small businesses. Prior to serving as state representative, in 2012, the Honorable Sarah Anthony was elected to the Ingham County Board of Commissioners. And at the time of her election, she was the youngest African-American woman to serve in that capacity in the United States. Sarah was born and raised in Lansing. She's a graduate of Lansing Everett High School. She received her BS degree in political science and legal studies from Central Michigan University and went on to receive a master's of public health degree from Western Michigan University. Yes, she is Michigan made. She is also a proud member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated and is active in numerous community and professional organizations. She lives in Lansing and enjoys spending time with her family. Thank you, Representative Anthony, for joining us. Our second panelist who is the Honorable Shauna Dunnings, another illustrious native of Lansing, Michigan. Shauna achieved a milestone on November 6, 2018, when she was elected as the first woman, underscore this, first woman and first African-American to serve as a probate court judge in Ingham County, Michigan. She currently serves as the chief judge of probate court and the chief judge pro tempore of the circuit court. Her docket includes family law matters and probate matters. She presides over the Phoenix Treatment Court, which is a specialty court that serves youth who have a history of sexual abuse, exploitation, and/or sex trafficking. Prior to becoming judge, our very lovely Shauna Dunning spent over a decade in private practice with her father, Stuart Dunnings Jr., who was the first African-American attorney to maintain a law practice in Lansing. Her public service experience has been extraordinary. She has served as the assistant friend of the court, the attorney referee in Eaton County, the Ingham County friend of the court, and as the Ingham County Circuit Court Administrator. Judge Dunnings received her BA degree from the University of Michigan and her Juris Doctorate JD Law degree from Howard University School of Law. In addition to being very active in professional organizations, Judge Dunnings is a lifetime member of Trinity AME Church, a Diamond Life member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, a life member of the NAACP, and a member of the East Lansing chapter of Links Incorporated. She resides in Lansing with her husband, Stuart Dunnings, and they have 2 adult children. Continuing on our queens, the Honorable Christina Robinson Garrett serves as a judge at the 36th District Court and was recently appointed to the Michigan Court of Appeals, 1st District by our Honorable Governor Whitmer. Prior to her appointment to the judicial office, she served as general counsel to Wayne County Sheriff's Office, where she worked on a number of issues that involve legal matters related to contracts, labor and employment, freedom of information, personnel, civil process, and correctional issues. Her counsel protected the rights of employees, inmates, and the public. She is a committed public servant who serves as a mentor and tutor for the Horizons Upward Bound program at Cranbrook Schools, Sister and Leaders Who Care programs. She is the vice president of the University of Detroit Mercy School of Law Association of Black Law Alumni, and a member of the board of directors of the Forgotten Harvest and Association of Black Judges of Michigan. She is also a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, active in the Detroit Alumni Chapter, and serves on the State Bar of Michigan Representative Assembly and Diversity and Inclusion Advisory Committee. Judge Garrett earned her bachelor's degree from the University of Michigan and her JD degree from the University of Detroit Mercy School of Law. Switching to our educators, I am delighted to introduce Dr. Pamela Pugh, who serves as the Executive Vice President of Special Initiative Development of the Chisholm Legacy Project, a resource hub for Black frontline climate justice leadership. Dr. Pugh has over 24 years of experience in the field of public health, with an emphasis on achieving health equity through environmental justice. She formed a consulting firm, Regeneration LLC, and she still does consulting work with that group. Very important to note, between October 2016 and November 2019, Dr. Pugh served as the Chief Public Health Advisor for the City of Flint, where she worked alongside Flint Mayor Dr. Karen Williams Weaver to implement a health equity in all policy approach to decision-making during the Flint water crisis. In 2014, Dr. Pugh was elected to an 8-year term on the Michigan State Board of Education, and she currently serves as vice president of that board. She is also a member of many other educational boards throughout the state and the nation. She draws critical and urgent attention to the linkages between academic outcomes and children's health, and pushes for resources to improve environments in which children and families live, learn, work, and play. Dr. Pugh received her Doctor of Public Health and Master of Science degree from the University of Michigan School of Public Health Environmental Sciences program, and a Bachelor of Science degree in Chemical Engineering from Florida A&M University. She is a very proud graduate of Saginaw High School, a member of the World Outreach Campus Church of God in Christ, and a very proud member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Our final panelist is Dr. Rima Reynolds Vassar, fondly known to those of us who work with her as Dr. Rima. Dr. Rima is a former K-12 public school teacher, counselor, and administrator. She currently organizes parents for the improvement of student achievement and teaches educational leadership to aspiring school administrators. Her research is centered in schools serving culturally diverse students and families. Dr. Rima was elected to the Michigan State University Board of Trustees in 2020 for an 8-year term that began on January 1st, 2021. She is also an associate professor in the College of Education at Eastern Michigan University, where she was named Faculty of the Year in 2020. She is the Morris Endowed Chair leading the Leadership Talent Development Project in the Detroit Public Schools Community District. Committed to every student learning, Dr. Rima serves as a consultant for school districts across the country, equipping educators with reflexive practices that allow them to take deliberate action and increase equity and access for all students. She is focused on developing servant leaders who are committed to radical hope and love. And she has taught and presented at conferences throughout the United States and in over 20 countries. She received her PhD in urban schooling from the University of California, Los Angeles, UCLA. Dr. Rima is also a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated and a number of community-based organizations. She is eager to share with us today that her daughter will soon become an alumnus, and she's very excited about her imminent graduation from Michigan State University. A little bit of go green to go with a little bit of go blue when you think about what our whole panel brings together. So what we have done today is we have invited each of our panelists to share in their own words, using their own voices, their thoughts and visions about how we as African American women can use our voices individually and collectively to strengthen our communities as we work to improve the lives of our youth. They will each speak in the order in which I have presented them and share their vision, and then we will continue the dialogue based on their initial remarks. I would like to now turn this over to the Honorable Sarah Anthony, who will start.
No pressure. I did not want to be first, but it's okay. My last name is Anthony, and you have to be always ready. So thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to be a part of your Founders Day. This is an outstanding opportunity to learn more about your organization and the important work that you do in our community. It is Sunday. I have coined that self-care Sunday, so I'm much more casual than I normally would be, but I am trying to be true to a commitment I made to myself last year, which was take Sundays to reflect, pour into myself spiritually, and really recharge. So no makeup, did the natural hair today, and then we're going to keep it moving. But this is a outstanding panel, and I'm just blessed to be a part of it. So this is the first time I'm actually hearing the question, the big question that brought us here today. So I'll just really speak from the heart and not be too long-winded, because you know politicians, we can just talk. So when I think about how we as Black women can both lead, but also use our voice to make our communities better and empower the next generation, I think about the work that myself and other Black women are doing in the legislature and how that can translate to what you all are doing in your parts of the vineyard. And one of the first things that we can do is actually use our voice. You know, I think that 2020 provided a lot of opportunity to have very courageous conversations, having some uncomfortable conversations, and really be very unapologetically Black and female. And that is not always easy. We see that whether it's in the workplace, in education settings, for me in the halls of power, it is also very isolating to be Black and female and also uplift issues that are unique to our experience. If you need any example of that, I will tell you about the Crown Act, an act that will allow Black women, Black men, Black children to wear our hair in our natural state without the fear of discrimination. Years ago, I was laughed out of rooms and told that I was absolutely crazy, could not get a single person in the legislature to co-sponsor that movement. And now on Friday, we saw at the national level, the Crown Act becoming one step closer to being a reality. But it's far beyond just things like the Crown Act or being unapologetic around Black women's healthcare or housing or food access and making sure that we can show up as ourselves in places of power. I think that another piece of this is about sharing our journey with the next generation. You know, I've been blessed, whether it's at my church, in my sorority, just in our community, to be really embraced by a cloud of witnesses. And the majority of them are Black women who have not just shared their amazing journeys and talked about all the positive, they've also talked about how hard it can be. Not so that I can lean on the negative, but they don't want me to come up the rough side of the mountain. So they've shared their best practices and experiences in hopes that I can learn and glean from those experiences and then do better. So I think that we can, one, show up and use our voice. Two, I think that we can share our journey. And then three, which is how I will, as they say at my church, as I'll take my seat, the last thing that I think we can do is take care of ourselves. I think I've learned over the last couple of years about this notion of radical self-care and whatever that looks like for ourselves. I've seen too many of us burn out, become mentally and emotionally and physically stressed. If the pandemic taught us nothing, is that we can work smarter, that you cannot pour from an empty cup. And so I have taken that to heart. I have thought about the fact that if I do not take care of myself and my family, I can't show up for my community and the people that I love outside of my home. And so making sure that while we're helping children, serving our communities, pouring out, that we're also investing in ourselves, because we are absolutely worth it. And there's no great prize for stressed out, burnt out Black woman. There's no medal, there's no trophy. And so taking care of ourselves, I think, is the third and final point that I would just like to say. And again, thank you for this opportunity. Thank you.
Well, another tough act to follow. But I've had the pleasure of having the opportunity to work with Representative Anthony over the years. As was noted, she started out, well, she didn't start out, but our paths crossed when she was a commissioner in Ingham County on the Board of Commissioners, and I was in Ingham County Circuit Court Administration. There were several times I came to the table with requests, and she was always very helpful in helping me navigate that process and very supportive in the efforts that we were there pursuing. And she always made herself available. She continues to do that. And to the theme of the women working together to make change, I can tell you, since I've been in my position as the probate court judge with the Phoenix Court, Representative Anthony spoke at an event at the Ingham County Youth Academy. It's a day treatment program where we provide programming to juveniles that are in the juvenile justice system. She participated in a candidate forum. There were students selected to be able to ask the candidates questions. One of the students selected was one of my Phoenix Court participants. She was very impressed with Representative Anthony. And when she came back to court, we meet weekly and we talk about what happened over the reporting period. She went on and on and on about Representative Anthony and how being exposed to her and having the opportunity to question her just really motivated her. And I'm going to tell you, the Phoenix youth are a population of children, and I call them children, that have been exposed to some terrible things. They have trauma, and for them to be excited about anything is a big deal. So when I found out, I intentionally reached out to Representative Anthony, told her the impact she had on that particular student, and invited her to participate in her graduation, because this young lady has a wealth of potential. She just didn't know it. It was untapped potential. And I was going to do whatever it took to encourage her to graduate. I was able to use Representative Anthony's contact with her and impact on her to incentivize her to graduate from the program. Representative Anthony said, I can come to the graduation, let me know when it is. And she showed up. She showed up in my courtroom and she showed out. And just as she did here before me, she spoke. The young lady smiled from ear to ear. She seldom smiled. She was a very, very hard to reach young lady, but it was just that simple step of appearing at the Youth Academy to participate in a candidate forum, and then following up with coming to her graduation and allowing me to use her presence as incentive to have this young lady complete the program. That is the perfect example that I can give Chums as to how, when we work together, we accomplish much. I too am not going to take a lot of time because there's a lot of things I want to talk about. And the 1, 2, 3, I don't have a 1, 2, 3. I have one big issue that I'm working on. Well, actually two that I'm working on, and it is acknowledging and addressing mental health needs of our children. We spend a lot of time and a lot of resources on mental health needs for adults. The pandemic has been good for very few things, but one of the things it has been good for is allowing us to recognize mental health issues and allowing us to speak about it, use our voices, talk about it, and do something about it. Before the pandemic, people would often be afraid to talk about mental health in our community, particularly in our community, and be afraid to share their experiences to help people that are suffering from mental illness. The pandemic has allowed us to talk about that more freely. I have found in my current position, this chapter of my life, that we have neglected to put the resources toward our children and their mental health, that we typically wait until later. And I'm going to share with you an example, and it's an example closely following an actual story. I had a youth in my court that was in the court, under court jurisdiction because of a neglect and abuse. He was terribly beaten by his mother's boyfriend, obviously traumatized. This young man then ended up placed with his grandmother through the probate side as a guardian. The grandmother was providing care. This young man had significant amount of mental health issues that needed to be addressed. While he was working on himself in a limited capacity, he ended up on the juvenile justice side. He had criminal charges issued against him. He became what we call a dual ward, a child with a juvenile delinquency docket and a neglect and abuse. As he navigated through the system, I ultimately came on as the judge and learned to understand what this young man's background was. When he had a crisis, he had a mental health crisis. He entered the system through CMH. CMH says, we don't have a bed for you. We don't have anywhere we can place you. CMH called Child Protective Services because his grandmother wouldn't take him back home. His grandmother wouldn't take him back home because he threatened her life, he threatened his grandfather's life, and he threatened his own life. Nevertheless, CMH didn't have a bed for him. CMH says to CPS, you got to come get him because the grandmother won't take him back. CPS cannot place him. They don't have any place to put him. There's no foster home that would accept him. There's no residential treatment facility available. CMH calls our youth center, our Ingham County Youth Center, and says he has criminal history, you take him. Our youth center says, I can't take him. We can't just bring him in off of the street. We have to have an order. So I get to work on Monday morning. My family division director is at my chambers saying, what are we going to do with this individual? I brought him in, I brought everybody in, and I learned the power of the robe and the power of the pen is very limited because there are agencies and community partners that we have to rely upon to effectuate any order that we enter. So once I was able to figure out his needs, I ordered him to be placed in a mental health institution for kids for the treatment because he needed treatment. He didn't need to be in the youth center. I was immediately told that they couldn't fulfill my order. They couldn't effectuate it. Well, I happen to know an African-American woman who works for DHHS, and she is in a very high position of power. And I called her up and I said, you've got to help me. You've got to explain to me what is going on. And she took the time to tell me about CMH, which is siloed from DHHS CPS. and that there's one funding source here, another funding source there. And this is why we can't do anything for him here until he's finished over there. And I needed that help to understand, but I also needed that help to formulate my order to tell this particular entity why they had to take care of that child, which I did. So again, my position of power only went so far. I had to work with my sisters in the field, people in the field. It just so happened to be there was someone I could call and ask, what the heck is going on? And what can I do? She didn't have the what can I do answer, but she told me what was going on and I could develop the answer. So mental health, that's one of my issues. And that's my perfect example of why. So that he didn't end up in the youth center, he ended up in a medical treatment facility. My second issue is, what are we going to do with our juveniles, our 15 to 18-year-olds that have no place to go? And I spent many years in private practice. In private practice, I dealt with a population that could pay a retainer fee and pay my bill. That's a completely different population that I serve today. I was very intentional about being a probate judge because I was very intentional about helping families, children, and those that could not help themselves. This chapter of my life, I'm dedicating to that population. And that's a population that I otherwise would not have touched. While in this position, dealing with that population, I have learned that we are failing our children miserably, particularly our children that are in marginalized communities, that are in dysfunctional families, and that have no place to go. And so as I look at the purpose of Chums, the theme of our discussion today, I share with all of this esteemed group, these are some of the things that I lose sleep over at night. And these are some of the things I'm dedicating this chapter of my life to, including starting a work group so that we can find resources for our youth for placement, encouraging people to consider being foster parents. That's a daunting task. I understand it, but it is a void that needs to be filled, and encouraging us to use our power and our voices to ensure that these children's mental health needs are being addressed. And so those are some of the things that are on my plate that I share with you. I too want to thank Chums for giving me the opportunity to speak on this very important topic, to be a part of this very important group of people. I look at June Newsom, and she knows that I look at her with great fondness for all that she did in the Sexton High School during the years my child was there. It's people like June Newsom and others here that have supported me in my journey that allow me to be able to sit here as the first woman and the first African-American judge elected to the probate court. 180 years of the probate court, and there was never a woman at the table deciding what to do with our families. So I thank you all, and I look forward to engaging in the discussion. I want to congratulate Judge Christina. I am so proud of you. I know you two have been on the ground floor in 36th District Court, and now we have the pleasure of having you serve us at the Court of Appeals. That is awesome. She's going to do a great job. She's phenomenal, and we are blessed to have her at the Court of Appeals. I hand it over to you.
Thank you so much. Judge Dunnings, I remember meeting you my first day of new judges school, and you were just an inspiration. You still are. And I just thank you so much for everything that you just shared. To all the beautiful women of Chums, thank you for having me here today. Happy Founders Day to all of you. I initially was going to start my comments one way, but after hearing Judge Dunnings, I'm going to start a different way. I never thought I would ever have this opportunity to serve in this capacity. I lost my father to a drug overdose to cocaine when I was 15 years old. the reason I wanted to serve at the 36th District Court was very intentional. I wanted to participate in the treatment program, specifically the drug treatment court program. I currently have had an opportunity for the past 3 years to serve as one of the presiding judges over the drug treatment court program and to help families and help children that are impacted by losing parents due to drug addiction, as I did myself, in a very, I believe, impactful way. I believe it's important to have Black women on the judiciary because of our perspective, because of our background and our experiences. It is an honor to have an opportunity to serve and to serve coming from Judge Stevens. I just can't tell you the shoes that I will never be able to fill her shoes. But what I will do is to try and live up to the legacy that she's leaving on that court. When I think about your question, how to make your voice, how to strengthen communities and impact the lives of children by your voice. I believe I've done that, and I am doing that at the 36th District Court, and I will continue to do it on the Court of Appeals. On the Court of Appeals, I have an opportunity to try and keep families together by dealing with issues related to termination of parental rights, just as I did here at 36th District Court in trying to save lives and keep families together with their drug treatment court program. Mental illness, homelessness, drug addiction, these are all issues where, as Judge Dunning spoke about, the power of the pen can only go so far. I have to work on all of the partners that I have available to me to try and keep these families together. I can tell you that behind the scenes, I'm making phone calls, I'm talking to every facility and anybody that I know that may be able to help me make sure that justice is being served. I will say this, all of us that are serving here as panelists and all of you in your own professional lives are inspiration for young women who are looking to fulfill their dreams someday. I keep a picture in my chambers of a drawing that a young girl drew of me at my first judicial investiture. And I keep it right there as a reminder to me that every decision that I make, anything that I do and say, is having an impact on somebody. Someone's looking at me that I don't know and thinking, can I do this someday? And I think as we embark on having the first Black woman on the US Supreme Court, it's so important that young Black women and girls everywhere know that they too can serve at the highest level in our state and our country. I don't want to take up too much time, but I promise you that as I sit on the Court of Appeals, that I will listen. I will bring my perspective, my own experiences, and the experiences of all the Black women that I know and the stories that I've heard with me to the bench to make decisions that will impact people and try and keep families together and really impact children. Because behind every case, behind all the Black letters on a page or an opinion or a brief, there are real families behind each case. And we as judges have to make sure that we're always keeping that at the forefront of our mind as we make any decision. So thank you all for your time. Thank you for having me here today. I am truly honored to be here, and I'm most honored to serve at this level of our state.
Good evening. What an honor it is to share this very special mile marker day with you women. And as African American women, I, like you, was raised to do the work of building and strengthening community. But with a strong sister friend circle, I have learned how vital it is for us as women to have safe spaces where we can be vulnerable about our weaknesses, our fears, but safe spaces where we as women can share our hopes and our dreams. And so when I think about the Chums founders, I think about a phrase that I often use, and that is, one acting alone is fierce, but a group of women acting together is a force. And as we celebrate these African American women who convened around the theme of listen to the children, enrich their lives, I cannot help but think of how each of us here acting together can be a mighty force in ending the school to prison pipeline, especially for our Black boys, our Black children. And here in Michigan, as I saw the lineup, it just reminded me of this topic. But here in Michigan, African American children, in some reports, are thought to be 70% more likely to live in high poverty areas where their schools lack the resources to meet the needs of all students. And yes, we do have funding, one-time funding that is coming through, but this has been decades of neglect. And we know that Michigan still remains at the bottom of states for equitable funding for our children. Then we also look at this juxtaposed to the fact that Black residents comprise roughly 50% of the state's prisoners and only 14% of the overall state population. And African Americans are incarcerated at a rate almost 6 times greater than that of whites. And I know some of my co-panelists could speak these statistics far greater than I can. But nationally, we also know that statistics show us that dropouts are 3.5 times more likely to be arrested than high school graduates. And 68% of all males in prison do not have a high school diploma. So when I think of women leaders building and strengthening community, I think of us fighting collectively for equitable public education and to stop the dismantling of public education, but the adequate school funding for all Michigan children. I think of women leaders being a voice for healthy and safe schools and a strong advocate for respect and fair pay for teachers and others in the education profession, especially at this time when we're seeing the mass exodus of teachers. I also think of us as women leaders, ensuring that our children are allowed to learn an accurate account of our US history, with teachers having the academic freedom and the rights to teach our children a comprehensive history, our multifaceted and complex history of this country. And so those are my thoughts. I so appreciate being with you all here in this esteemed lineup of panelists. And again, congratulations on 76 years.
Oh my. So I think Dr. Pugh said that we're a movement by ourselves, but we're a force when we're together. I think she said we're fierce individually and a force together. I'm full. Thank you, Chums, for having me today to speak. Thank you so much, Soror. Dr. Wanda Lipscomb, who just continues to be outstanding all the time, shining brightly like the yellow in your logo. You have a gem in her, and I just appreciate being invited. Happy Founders Day.
So when I think about education and I think about Black women, I can't separate the two. One, let me just say very quickly, I do love Black women. I love us. I think that we are completely bomb in every way, but also the ones who pave the way all the time. And so when I think about Black women and I think about education, and I just really appreciate the Chums where you say, listen to the children and then meet the needs of the community. And what you're saying is the children will lead us. The children will let us know exactly what's necessary for our communities to be better. And then you all use your resources to make them better, right? But you're listening to the children first. And I think we miss that often in our schools. The kids know what they need. And by that way, we'll know what the community needs as well. And this has been since we were free, right? We were brought here in chains. And we knew the power of education. We knew the potency of education. I think of education as an elixir or
the cure. It could be the cause and the cure for all things that are socially unacceptable. We talked about marginalization earlier. Judge Dunnings was talking about the marginalization of children, and education is the way to cure all of these ills. If we just focus in on what children are saying that they need from us, and we've done this from the time we were brought here in chains. We knew literacy was the gateway to freedom. We knew it. We knew it, and we would steal freedom so much. When and by stealing freedom, we're stealing literacy, right? So much so that when I said stealing, because they also knew that reading was the way to freedom, right? And so it was illegal to teach Black people to read. The only two white women that I know who were hanged back in those times were women who were teaching Black children to read. That's how critical education is. And so once we got free, we were stealing literacy. Once we got free, we invested in schools. We paid our taxes into the state, but yet still had to have our own separate and unequal schooling system that we actually paid for. We bought our own buses, paid our own drivers, right? We put our little money together as sharecroppers to make sure that our children had what they needed. We tar paper shacks, right? One room classrooms, right? With the discards of white folks brought into our classrooms. And so I just love this picture with the children with their hats on the back, and they look so professional. Everything is coiffed. I love this picture, but I love this picture more where there's this community aspect and they're helping one another. Right? He's lighting it up I love us. I just love us. But from the time that we had a little bit of change, we were trying to really get schools down for our children because we knew that was the way that we get free. And the only mistake we did was then put our education in the hands of people who did not want us to be educated. So we lost something in integration. And I think about that in my work with parents across the United States. I work with parents in California and parents in Michigan to think about what we need to do for schools, right? What we need to do for our children in schools. And in Michigan, if you think about the potency of literacy, 3 times, and this is why it's so important, Judge Robinson Garrett said this, we need representation in all of these spaces, but certainly within the law, right? Certainly where we're making policy. 3 times Black parents have said to Michigan, we want our children to read. And 3 times the Supreme Court of Michigan has said, no, you have to send your children here. Yes, you do, for 12 years. And whether or not they read is not our concern, nor are we accountable to that. 3 times. So we do need Black women who know, Black women lead, that's what we do, who know what the struggle is to then push in and change some of these policies, right? So I think about this in different spaces with different people. I think about this in Detroit with white parents who want the same for their children. But the difference in their plight and ours is that we already know what it takes. They're trying to learn. So I think about this in terms of my own mother, right? Who, if I look at this, she wasn't as involved as people wanted her to be. She didn't go on field trips. She came to back to school and maybe that was it. She not coming to anything else. No mommy T and me. She didn't trust educators right off. She kind of felt like maybe that they weren't to be trusted, right? So my uniform would be a little bit tattered sometimes because she didn't iron after I was in 2nd grade. She was like, you iron, that's your stuff. So I understand how educators looked at her, right, as someone who was not involved, someone who did not care about school. But my mother sent my brother and I to private schools, and she was a single parent, and she was working an hourly wage. She wasn't coming to the school because she would be missing out on money for the lights to come to our school for mommy T and me. But she cared deeply about education. So much so that I thought she was kind of a maniac. Like here we are, she's the Girl Scout leader. These people didn't know behind the scenes what my mother was doing. That's me and my little brother. And my mom, who was so beautiful, she passed in 2019, but just gorgeous. She's going to work here. It's her birthday. She imparted in us that 1, education is the key to all success, and 2, Black people are necessary for everything that you do. Black people are. So here she is, the mother who's uninvolved, with a daughter with a PhD from UCLA, and she literally wouldn't say my name. She would just introduce me like that. So I think about this in terms of what is our charge. And we have Dr. Pamela Pugh, who's always in all kinds of turmoil as they push back against a public education that our children need, right? They're pushing back against that. Dr. Pugh ran for school board. She's running again. We need to get behind Black women who are running for these very important positions, but also we need to encourage one another to run. I would have never thought to do anything in public service. Someone had to invite me. We need to invite other people and then show them how to get it done. Bring them along into the decision-making rooms. We have to be at the table. And I'm not saying that we need to be, Bogarting the table, but we when we get there, we end up being the table because we're the leaders. I didn't even know that we were going to be talking about this all day, but phenomenal woman, I really do mean that. I really do mean that. I wore my shirt and God is good at all aligned, right? That goes with the theme perfectly. Because when Black women push into a space, the space has changed and it's always improved. I think about Black History Month being last month, International Women's History being this month, and I think about the audacity of it all. Sure, I'm glad we're being acknowledged. I'm glad that we have some spotlight, but the idea that we have a pop-out month, that Black people in the United States have to be added on as a spotlight month, a pop-out month, is crazy. There wasn't a US without Black people, period. Not at all. Not at all. Once the US started, we were already here. So a Native American month, same thing. How are you having this? Because we've been written out of history. We've been written out of it. How are we having a Women's History Month? You know, the oldest woman they've ever found is a Black woman. Since the beginning of history, we've been here. There's that. How do we get a spotlight? They should get a spotlight. They're the afterthought. We're the creator of all these things. And so I think God has already positioned us in the last 2 years, when I say us, Black women, to take our positions, take our places, and get the house together, right? When mama comes home, everything gets tightened up. We need to go back and tighten up in every single space of influence. So I'm always going to implore you to go into education. Even if you're not into education, you have a school, you have a community that is now your responsibility. I'm always going to encourage you to do that. But wherever we are, in transportation, the city hall, wherever you are being influenced, you go and influence. You be the influencer, right? We need to get them back together. So I think about this. I think about other women and how they look at Black women and how they admire us and they copy us and imitate, try to duplicate, but can never, right? And I think about where our secret lies. It's in the reach of our arms, the span of our hips, the stride of our steps, the curl of our lips. We're women. Phenomenally. Phenomenal women, that's me, that's you, that's us. Phenomenal women are we. And we're all we got and whom everyone else needs. As Representative Anthony encouraged us, rest, because rest is resistance, right? Rest is revolutionary. Listen to our children, meet their needs, and rest and love Black women. As Dr. Angelo and Dr. Shani exhort us, we rise. We still will rise. And as we continue to rise, so does the rest of the world.
Well, I think we have been enriched by the wonderful comments of all of our panelists. Shall we give them that virtual hand clap? Each of you shared from your heart, and that was exactly what our hope was for this program. You each share from your own perspective and expertise. And, when we think about the continuum of where we can make a commitment, we are delighted, so delighted that you all said yes to our invitation. We want to be respectful of everyone's time. You shared richly in your presentations. I think you sort of covered the scope of from birth through life. And the thing that struck me as you were talking was how everything was intertwined, right? We're all connected. And I think Dr. Rima sort of brought it home with, we are the essence of community. So, I want to thank everyone for participating with us today. We're going to have a real forum, a live forum. So those of you who know me, once I get a sort of an idea in my head, I'm like, I'm just going to beat you and come back to you. I mean, it just struck me, just the richness of how all the connections were. And so we thank each of you for sharing with us. I think you gave us many challenges that we could take on as chums. But I want to underscore two things. We as African-American women are greater than our organizations. So it's delightful to have panelists with us who are members of the two oldest African-American female sororities in the world. Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. You guys know our histories are intertwined. They don't kind of totally separate from one another. And to have all of the other organizations that are present because of the richness of the individuals who chose to spend a Sunday afternoon with us. So whether it's the Links, the Negro Business and Professional Women, all of the different communities of faith that we have, the NAACP, the list just goes on and on and on. Because as African-American women, we are not singular in nature. We are complicated. We get involved in multiple things. And so we thank you so much to each of the panelists for being with us, sharing your Sunday afternoon. When you could have just been just with your family, you decided to come and share with us. And we hope that we will have a part 2 to this. The second thing we want to be clear about is please let us know when you are running for office. Dr. Pugh, soon, I believe. Representative Anthony, soon, I believe. I mean, you have to tell us, just don't assume we know nothing, right? Because we need to be involved in that movement in the community. We cannot expect others to raise all the money, because if they raise all the money, then they have all the influence. And we have resources within our communities to support one another. The last thing I'll say is this Founders Day is being hosted by the Greater Lansing chapter. And we are delighted to have the Greater Detroit chapter with us. We do a rotation. One year we do Founders Day, the next year Detroit does Founders Day. And we wanted today's program to be about the state of Michigan. And I think we were able to do that in those of you who came to speak with us. And we're obviously super delighted that so many of our national officers were able to join us on a Sunday afternoon. So with that, I would like to introduce our second musical selection by Miss Michaela Barker, who is a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority. She's also one of those young prodigies that's pursuing work in public health, and she's going to be doing all kinds of awesome things in the future. So if we could have our musical selection by Ms. Barker.
When you're broken down and tired of living life on a merry-go-round, and you can't find the fighter, but I see it in you, so we're gonna walk it out and move mountains. We're gonna walk it out and move mountains. feels like it's getting hard to breathe. And I know you feel like dying, but I promise we'll take the world to its feet and move mountains. Take it to its feet and move mountains. And I'll rise up, I'll rise like the day. I'll rise up, I'll rise unafraid. I'll rise up and not do it 1,000 times again. For you, for you, for you, for you. All we need is hope. And for that we have each other. And for that we have each other. Yeah. We will rise, and we'll rise up. We'll rise, and we'll rise up high like the day. We'll rise up in spite of the ache. We will rise 1,000 times again. And we'll rise up high like the waves. We'll rise up in spite of the ache. We'll rise up and we'll do it 1,000 times again. For you, for you, for you, for you.
We would like to thank Michaela Barker for that beautiful musical selection. And I would also like to thank each and every one of you for attending our Chums Founders Day celebration. We would like to thank all Chums attending, especially our national officers and our esteemed guests. We had a lovely discussion. It was just awesome. We hope that you enjoyed our panel discussion with our African American women leaders. And I hope that you guys will have a blessed and productive week impacting our youth. Thank you so much for attending our Chums Founders Day celebration. Thank you.